Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
Hi, welcome to the Senior Resources Show. My name is Cary, and I'm the Director of the Town of Colonie Senior Resources Department. Thank you for joining me today. My guest today is Kristin Vivian, Program Director of the Bright Horizons Adult Day Program, and it's a program of Colonie Senior Service Centers Incorporated. Kristin, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you do so much in your program at Bright Horizons at Beltrone, and there's so much that caregivers and seniors and just folks watching the show need to know about the services that are available for loved ones who are in need of more assistance and for caregivers. So, you know, when I think about Bright Horizons, the Adult Day program, I think, you know, it's as much about taking care of the caregiver as it is taking care of a chronically ill senior or loved one who's in need of services. And with that being said, can you start off by telling our viewers what really constitutes a caregiver?
Well, as you know, Chris, caregivers really cross a broad spectrum. There could be a spouse who's a caregiver. It could be parents of somebody who might have developmental disabilities. It could be grandchildren at this point caring for a grandparent. So we really see a lot of different types of caregivers, and I think the real emphasis that we need to remember about caregiving is that it's a 24/7 job, 365 days a year. And so really the main focus of our program is to provide that opportunity for respite for those caregivers and to allow the seniors to have an opportunity to come to a location that is social and fun and allows them to interact with peers.
Well, that's great, and I know that so many seniors and caregivers do benefit from the program. What are some of the biggest challenges that caregivers face, and how does your program help to fill those challenges for caregivers?
Yeah, I think balancing their own personal lives with the task of caregiving is often one of the greatest challenges. Many caregivers are still in the workforce, and so they need an opportunity to know that their loved one is in a safe environment where they can have some supervision during the day if they need to, and to know that they're still engaging in life to the fullest that they can. Mm-hmm. And then that gives the caregiver a real peace of mind. Mm-hmm. So then they can go about on their day. And they need a break from that job of caregiving as well. Mm-hmm. And so even if a caregiver is retired and home and or a spouse is home, they need some time to themselves to be able to recharge and allow them to become and continue to be a really successful caregiver.
Yeah, absolutely. So. You talked a little bit about the respite that it provides, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But when we talk about Bright Horizons Adult Day program, can you walk me through a day? What is a day like for a person in your program?
Sure. Our staff is on site generally between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., so we hope that we're fulfilling that need for the working caregiver. And then most of our members start arriving for the day between 8:30, 8:45 in the morning. And then we provide a really nice breakfast for the members who are with us each day. After that, we generally try to break into an active activity, mostly exercise. So we really try to have a focus on health and maintaining mobility. So we'd go into an exercise program, and then we break into smaller group activities. And the key to that is that we really try to get to know our members mm-hmm. and to know the things that they enjoy. Mm-hmm. So for example, we have a group that really enjoys baking, so several times a week, especially when they might be in attendance at program, we're trying to bake. It could be crafts, it could be a word game, whatever it might be. So we do many different activities that hopefully are geared towards the members that are with us, mm-hmm. To tap into their interests and their past experiences. And then we serve a really nice hot lunch, generally, and then in the afternoon, additional activities that will take place until the members are picked up to go home.
That sounds like a full day.
It is. It's a lot of fun,
And
a lot of laughing.
That's great. And when I stop down in the program during the day from time to time, sometimes I go down just to get my fix, because it really is a welcoming environment and a very friendly environment. And what's always very telling for me is that the residents, the attendees in the program are always smiling, and they always seem happy, and they're always glad to see visitors.
Yeah.
So
When people come to tour, I try to tell them that, we're really a social club for seniors, and many of our members are with us because there might be a reason that they need to be in a supervised environment, but for many people it's just because they want to be in a social atmosphere, get out of the home, do something that enables them to converse with others, reminisce, and talk about their life experiences. So we really try to foster those things during the day, and to touch upon those elements in that individual that really bring them to life. And so I think that's one of our greatest challenges and one of the things we focused on most. And so we really try to do a lot of laughing and have discussions about experiences and things that they remember from the past. Try to bring out their creative side with arts and crafts and music. I mean, music really reigns supreme in many of our programs, because that's where we can always make a connection with any member, no matter where they are within, whatever their medical needs might be. We can always reach them with music, so that's important.
Well, I think the benefit that I see is the town has 7 senior clubs, which many seniors belong to, but lots of times folks get to a place where they need a little more structure,
Right.
a little bit more supervision.
Right.
And I think the beauty of the one program in particular at Beltrone is that folks who want to be active in the clubs can be active in the club, and if their spouse needs a little bit more supervision, a little more structure in a club, Bright Horizons is there to fill that need.
Absolutely. And we do have the 3 locations throughout the town at this point. 2, again, being very busy, social, active programs, and then our 3rd program, trying to meet the needs of those members that might be progressing in the disease process, whatever it might be, whether it's physical or memory, a little bit more. So we try to find that perfect fit for whatever member's need is or whatever the caregiver's need is. And that's true. It's great. We love to partner with any of those town clubs as well, because we're always looking for volunteers as well as members. So we
I was going to touch on that, how important it is that, and how as a volunteer opportunity, it really provides so much more to the volunteer than it probably does to the folks in the program, as far as really feeling good about making a difference in the quality of somebody's life.
It's fun for them too, and many times we'll have the experience where the volunteer knows people in the program just from social activity throughout the town. And they really get to appreciate each other and learn each other's stories. And it's always great when we really appreciate our volunteers because they do so much for us, but it's great for them to, as you were saying, to give back to the members too, and in return they receive really good feelings as well.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit about who is appropriate for Bright Horizons. You talked a little bit about folks being cognitively impaired, but it's not limited to that. Is that correct?
No, absolutely not. A good portion of our membership may have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or a dementia, but we also have a large group who might just be living at home alone and wants to get out and socialize, and really needs that opportunity to interact with people a few times a week. Or, as we mentioned, they might be living with caregivers, family members who are at work, and so they want them to be in an environment where they know they're not just sitting home by themselves, perhaps watching TV.
Right.
So they want to have them in an environment that's stimulating. So that's a lot of times the choice as well. So we do have a really nice mix and a really variety of ages, anywhere from 60 to 95. So.
And if somebody was younger with a dementia, because we are seeing more of that today, unfortunately.
Yes.
Excuse me. Folks younger than 60 can participate in the program?
They can. We just need to make sure that we have a diagnosis that
Right.
supports the fact that, because typically we are a senior program. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. one of the critical elements for a caregiver is how will my loved one get back and forth to the day program because they're at work.
Sure.
How do you fill that need?
Well, for folks who live within the town of Colonie, we do have the opportunity for members to use our Colonie Senior Services transportation. And so the bus can pick them up in the morning and bring them home in the afternoon. And so that's a really simple process of just simply filling out an application and setting it up on the days that we need to set it up. For other members who live outside of the town of Colonie, there are opportunities with CDTA Star Bus. Many of our members transport that way, or family members transporting if they're able to.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you're open late enough so that folks, if they're working, can get their loved one after they finish their work day, and the program accommodates that.
Yes, members can be dropped off shortly after 8 and picked up just right before 5 if they need to. And so far it seems to have worked out.
But I would think that's a long day for someone to be in program that long. I would think probably around mid-afternoon.
It is.
Someone's pretty
It is.
pretty tired
And
out.
we see that a little bit in the membership sometimes because a good portion of our members do participate with Colonie Senior Services transportation. And so about between 3 and 3:30 when those buses start arriving, we can start to see some of the other members get a little anxious. When am I getting picked up?
Yeah.
And, will I be here? We always joke, nobody sleeps overnight here, so you will always have a ride home. We will guarantee that. But some of the members are tired at the end of the day because it is a lot of activity. It is a lot of mental stimulation and physical activity. So, generally most people are departing between 3:30, 4 o'clock.
And I hear from caregivers that one of the secret gems of the program is that a person participating in the program typically leaves there fatigued at the end of the day. So the nights maybe are a little bit easier. The restlessness isn't as obvious, or the wandering and things like that. It helps to kind of alleviate some of the issues that the caregiver, if the individual was home all day, would be dealing with.
Yeah, that is our hope. We have seen or have had some reports from caregivers who've said, gosh, my family member seems more alert. They seem to be more engaged. We can converse better. So it does help to foster and maintain some of those social skills, especially for people with the dementia diagnosis.
Absolutely.
I don't know that there's any clinical research that would say, from a medical standpoint, but we do have our caregivers telling us that. And that, yes, they're tired at night, they come home. And even our members will say, gosh, by Friday, I'm ready to go home and just rest, which is nice for them because that's what we want. We want them to have a good night's sleep and to have used up to the fullest their potential throughout the week.
Absolutely. And what a gift it is for a caregiver to be able to hold on to a little bit more of their loved one that makes them so special to them, you know. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when folks attend Bright Horizons, how do you handle if they're on medications, if there's medications that they need to take during the day? I'm sure that's a question that you get from caregivers quite often.
We are a social model program, so we do not administer medications. We don't hold on to or store medications, but family members can certainly, if the need arises because of the timing of throughout the day of when the medicines need to be taken, can send with the member the medications pre-dispensed, and then we'll remind the member to take it at the appropriate time during the day to make sure that they get their medications on time.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's important. Yeah. You talked about having 3 sites, and I think what really is beneficial is that one of your sites, and you mentioned this briefly before, is geared for folks when maybe they can't do as well in a day with so much stimulation and activity. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the site at Carondelet and what that provides? Sure.
Bright Horizons at Carondelet. We, as the dementia diagnosis progresses, as you know, sometimes the extra stimulation just becomes too overwhelming for people in the disease, and they need a little bit quieter space. They need a little bit slower paced program where they can have a little more one-on-one attention. And so Carondelet was developed and has been maintained for that purpose. It's a very a little bit gentler program where the pace of the day is slightly slower, and yet still the members are really pushed to do, not pushed, but encouraged to do activities that will still help to foster the things that they can do. So they're still doing crafts, they're still doing baking, they're still doing simple word games. And so things that we would do in all of our programs are still being done there, but just on a more guided basis with a little more supervision. There's a little more cueing support so that if somebody needs to be reminded of the steps of how to do something, they do that. But it is still a social model program as well. So there does come a point in time where we can no longer meet the needs of our members, and so we refer them on to other programs.
Well, and that was my next question. The Carondelet program helps to keep folks at home in the community longer because
Absolutely.
as folks progress down the long-term care continuum, the options get fewer and
That's
fewer.
right.
So
And more expensive.
And more expensive. That's right. And I think the goal for most caregivers is to keep their loved ones at home as long as they can. So this program certainly helps to fill that that very important piece of the continuum of long-term care.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is the cost. I know that there is a cost for this program. Can you talk about that and any funding that might be available to offset the cost to take care?
Our program fee is $40 per day. And of course, that includes breakfast, lunch, an afternoon snack, and then the programming. So it really is an affordable option when you're taking a look at either in-home care or a longer-term care, such as assisted living or nursing home. And again, it's a way for us, and we have great partners with the town of Colonie and through Albany County who do help to offer some funding assistance if that $40 a day is a burden for a family because of their financial situation. So we fill out applications that are required by those two agencies, and then we would assist the families in helping to put the funding in place if they qualified.
Well, as a community social worker, I know what it costs to keep somebody with the services that they need to keep them in their home. For a companion program to come into someone's home to help with some basic activities of daily living, you're talking about $20 an hour.
Right.
And typically a 2 to 3 hour minimum.
Yeah.
So a minimum, you're looking at $60 a day for somebody to come into the home, and does not provide any of the social experiences that this program provides for folks, which I think when you're dealing particularly with a dementia individual, that this is most important, that they have that social stimulation during the day.
It is really important. And sometimes we find that along that caregiver journey, that caregiving journey, that we need to put sort of levels of care in place. So sometimes we might work with a family who's using some home health care in the morning and in the evening, and then we're companioning with a day program during the majority of the day to help that person remain successful and independent at home for as long as they can. So, sometimes we're coordinating with many different agencies to really make it work for the family. I'm sure you see that all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think probably if we want to talk about barriers, sometimes that is a barrier for families in actually utilizing the program to its fullest potential, is being able to work out the mornings and the early evenings is often a challenge.
It is.
But you do have a good amount of caregiver resources, and the town department is there to assist families as well. So between our two agencies, I think we do a pretty good job of linking families with those additional services that they may need in addition to, the Bright Horizons program.
Yeah, and we do try to, if I see the family is struggling a little bit with, what's the next step? Where do I go? Our finances might be starting to dwindle. I always make sure to refer back to you guys so that they really have an expert on what's out there.
Yeah, well, you know, it's great for us in our department just down the hall from Bright Horizons is to be able to showcase this program, because I'm always very proud when I walk through the door and say, this is available for you. This is, you know, being a caregiver myself, I understand how important it is for caregivers to get that respite and to know that their loved one is safe and well cared for. And I think important to say that, you know, not only are they provided lunch, but they're provided a quality hot meal. It's not just lunch. Caregivers can leave knowing that their loved one had a very nutritious, very hot, wonderful meal, so that at night maybe dinner is a lunch, and they've already had their main meal at noontime, which is an added benefit to the program.
That's very true. Nutrition is a really important part of the program. It's something that's important to Colonie Senior Services. So, yeah, that's a good point to make, because it's true. Some of these folks are still living on their own individually at home, and so they may not be able to do that big dinner meal. So it is nice that we can provide that for them and know that they've been well fed during the day. They've been physically and mentally stimulated. So, like we were saying before, they'll sleep well at night.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that I have found as a social worker is that many times, and there's a woman in program now that I've worked with her and her husband for years and years. I don't know how many tours of Bright Horizons that we had taken over the years, and he wasn't ready yet, didn't think she would do well, just wasn't ready to make that commitment, ready to make that move to that program. It's challenging for us as social workers, and I'm sure for your staff as well, when you know that a person can really benefit from the program, but you have to overcome these barriers that I think caregivers maybe are having a hard time accepting that this is where mom or dad or their loved one is at. That's a challenge. It's a transitional time for the member, and it's a transitional time for the caregiver. Can you talk about how you help families through that challenging time?
Sure. And you know, as you mentioned, it is a challenge and sometimes a frustration, because we know how much somebody can benefit from the program if they participate, but they also have to be a willing participant, and we really encourage that. We spend a good amount of time with the families in discussion of what the program is. We certainly encourage people to tour with their loved ones so that they can see the space and get comfortable with the space. And then we wholeheartedly recommend trial days, and we offer individuals to come as our guest and spend a few days with us to see what the program is all about, because often there's misconceptions. I think people don't really understand what exactly the program is, what it's like, what the people will be like. And so our hope is that through the trial days, they will come to understand and know that everybody's really welcoming, that it's a lot of fun. It's a place where they can still be themselves and make friends and enjoy the company of other people their age. And generally, we're pretty successful with that. But of course, you know, you'll always find someone who's just either too afraid or too unsure about making a change. They don't feel comfortable outside their home. So that is a challenge. But for the most part, through the tours and the trial days and just good information, talking with the families, that we're able to hopefully guide them into the program.
Well, I think it's a process because trust is involved.
Yes.
You know, it's letting go of that caregiving responsibility, hands-on anyway, for 7 hours a day, and handing it over to someone else when this has been, as a caregiver, been your job to take care of this person. Yeah. So it's oftentimes, I think, trusting the program.
Right. And we would recommend that people try to come to visit the program sooner than later, because it's oftentimes we'll see people will come to us when they're kind of in that crisis mode, and they're at their wits' end, they are desperate, they need a break, they just, you know. So we hope and encourage people to make the step sooner than when they're in that crisis mode, because it's really important that they feel good about the process, that they feel good about where they are as a caregiver, as you mentioned, and that the member doesn't feel as if it's a rush
Right.
type of a procedure. We really want them to be able to be participatory too, and if possible, have a little bit of say in if they're going to do it. Sometimes we need to say to members, well, this is something you need to do for your loved one, as much as for yourself. And sometimes they can be a part of that decision-making process, sometimes they can't.
Right.
But sooner than later is always the best course of action.
And any decision that any of us are
Of
going to make in
course.
our life,
Of
when we enter things from a preventative model rather than a reactive crisis situation, we always have better outcomes.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to tell families. And oftentimes I hear this, that they regret that they didn't make the decision sooner. When they see how happy that their loved one is in program and that they want to go in the morning, that's their job to get up and go to program, then they see the benefit and how, maybe sooner would have been better, but at least they're in the program now. So
That's right.
well, this has been terrific. You've shared a lot of good information, but in closing, Kristin, how do folks get more information? How can they contact you? Where do they start? And and I guess we didn't talk about how much is involved in the application process. So if you can kind of wind down on those topics, that would be great.
Well, the application process is really very simple. You can either go to our website, www.colonieseniors.org. There's plenty of information there. You could send us an email through that website if you're computer savvy. If you're not, traditional ways of picking up the phone and calling us work as well, which is 459-7967. That's my direct line, and I'd be happy to speak with families, give them more information. We do have a packet of information that can be mailed out. And the application process is really just about 3 pieces of paper that require some information about emergency numbers and things like that. And then we do require a medical assessment to be completed so that we have really a good understanding of where somebody is in the process. But that's, other than that, it's really very simple. And we can really do the whole process from start to finish in a matter of a few days if we can get the physician to be helpful with that. And then somebody can get started fairly quickly once they have made that decision. But no, it's very painless. We do, again, I think the trial days are really important, so we want to make sure that we schedule people for those and let them come in and feel comfortable and get going.
Oh, great. It's a great program. I'm really proud that Colonie Senior Service Centers provides this program to our town residents, and folks that live outside of the town do come in and use this program. So it's certainly a terrific program provided by your center, and I encourage folks who are on the fence about this to just give you a call. We are going to post your information at the end of the show so folks can take a few minutes and jot the information down. But I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been good information, and I know how committed you are to the program and how happy the folks are in the program. So thank you for what you do for the seniors in the town of Colonie.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share the information with the town and with others, and we would welcome them to call us if they're interested in being a member, or if they'd like to give us some volunteer time, we'd be more than happy to speak with them as well. And thank you for your partnership as a social worker in the town of Colonie in helping to foster the program. We appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And thank you for joining me today on the Senior Resources Show. We are going to post the information so that you can contact Kristin directly. Thank you and have a good day.